Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. So on the basis of one of my last videos on the karma of retrograde planets, I actually got a few queries from people, regarding the meaning of retrograde Saturn, or what happens when Saturn becomes retrograde in the horoscope. Okay. And so this video on understanding retrograde Saturn and the various insights, and also what you can do when you have Saturn retrograde, is on the basis of those queries. Okay, but before we get into the topic, I would like to call each one of you who have subscribed to this channel or who are regular viewers of this channel to help out a person named Debajyoti Adhya. He is a resident from Kolkata, and a few days ago he came to me, for requesting for a consultation regarding, his problems. And as I did the consultation, I could see a really bad chart. The person reeling under the effects of a really bad and malefic Saturn. Okay. And, there was no way for him to pay for the consultation. But anyways, what I have decided is after the consultation, I decided that I would appeal to the YouTube community, to my subscribers, to help out that person in every possible way, because he is suffering from severe health issues, and he has medical bills to pay, plus he also has an aged mother to look after and to take care of her. Okay, so his name is Debajyoti Adhya, and I've provided his his bank details, as well as his UPI ID, as well as his GPay or PhonePe or Paytm number in the description box below. Okay, so please try to help this gentleman out to the best of your abilities. Okay, now coming to the topic of this video. So Saturn retrograde. Okay, now just to give a general overview, around 50% of the people will have Saturn retrograde in their charts, because Saturn goes retrograde every month for around 5 months. Okay, for around 5 to 6 months it goes retrograde every year. Okay, so anyone who is born during that period will have a Saturn retrograde. Even I have a retrograde Saturn in my horoscope, but then because it is Saturn, people actually have a lot of interest to know what a retrograde Saturn would actually do. Okay, so we have to understand that a retrograde planet is a significator of karmic load. Okay, and as compared to a direct planet, a retrograde planet carries a greater karmic load. Okay, and retrograde means vakri or vakra in Sanskrit, which means curve or which means crooked. Okay, now as a disclaimer, we have to understand that the planets only move forward. They do not have any backward motion in reality. Okay, but in the state of vakri, they begin to move more slowly, which seems to us from the earth in the opposite way. Okay, and in this slow motion, they connect with us more strongly. Okay, so if you have a retrograde planet in the chart, no matter what it is, it indicates some unresolved karmic tasks from past life incarnations, which you have to resolve in this time. Okay, now coming specifically to Saturn, Saturn is the karaka for karma. Okay, Saturn is karma karaka, and when Saturn becomes retrograde, it begins to pressure the person even more, because putting the person under pressure, putting people under pressure is one of the characteristics of Saturn. So Saturn starts putting more pressure on the on the person, on the native who has a retrograde Saturn, and that and the pressure is brought about by unfolding events and situations in the areas of life where where Saturn is placed. Okay, for example, if Saturn is retrograde in the 4th house, then the person would feel a lot of karmic load in areas related to home or homeland or even the mother. Okay, and you know Saturn, as I said, it enters the state of Vakri once a year, annually. Okay. And even though even those people who do not have a retrograde Saturn in their birth chart, even though they feel its pressure in the areas where it sits, or where it aspects. Okay. As I said, Saturn becomes retrograde for around 4 to 5 months every year. So whenever it becomes retrograde, people start feeling the pressure coming from Saturn, or coming from those areas where Saturn sits or aspects. So, for those who are born with a Vakri Shani, all their lives, they feel the burden of karma, unresolved tasks and karmic events which push them to transform or change themselves. Okay. And retrograde Saturn in any horoscope is a kind of a severe test for the native. Okay. And what happens with a retrograde Saturn is that life will put you in exactly those situations and those people who most of all will irritate you. Okay. Who most of all will come to extract your karmic debts with you. Okay. And because Saturn is a slow graha, it is the slowest moving planet. So retrogression means it becomes 3 times more powerful. So there will be inevitable delays in everything. Okay. For example, if a retrograde Saturn is present in the 4th house, then Saturn delays the creation of family, creates obstacles to the achievement of happiness, tranquility, etc. Similarly, if it is retrograde in the 5th house, it complicates the birth of children. If it is retrograde in the 10th house, it gives difficulties in career growth or even in completing tasks. Okay. Now, the worst position of retrograde Saturn, if Saturn becomes retrograde in the 1st house or the 4th house, then in my opinion, that is the worst place for retrograde Saturn to be. Why? Because the 1st house impacts your entire discretionary power. It impacts your perception about life. It impacts your personality and the opportunities that you will find or that you will lose because of your perception. Okay. And the 4th house, it represents the emotional state, right? It represents the inclination of a particular person to depression or despondency. And because Saturn is a very dry planet, because Saturn does not have a sense of humor, so wherever Saturn sits, or wherever Saturn aspects, those people, those places will actually bring about a feeling of despondency for the native. Okay. Now, like any other planet, a Saturn can actually be in a state of ignorance or goodness. Okay. And these two states will be two completely, depending on the position of Saturn or depending on the state of Saturn, it will impact different people with with different lives, and it will also change their views on life. Okay. For example, say Saturn is in the mode of ignorance. Okay. And to know in which state Saturn is, please refer to a few videos of Lajitadi Avastha that I had put out a few months ago. Okay. So if Saturn is in the mode of ignorance, then a retrograde Saturn will endow a person with qualities such as excessive perfectionism in everything, excessive discipline in whatever he or she does. And such people will always be very, very strict about themselves and other people. Okay. There will be a constant dissatisfaction about how you should have done a few things, or how you have missed a few opportunities, or how unfair or dishonest life has been to you. Okay. And such people, they are not able to relax very easily, and as such they also will not allow anyone else to relax if they are in their vicinity. Okay. Now, under the influence of retrograde Saturn, people see the world only in black and white. Okay, there is nothing called neutrality for them, because they, such people, they know only the good or bad, only the right and wrong. Okay. And even, while expressing their feelings, they're very closed. They may appear to be very cold and detached, with some kind of severity related to some issues. Okay. So it can be really, really tough for, for these people to deal with themselves. Okay. And because of such strict rules, because of the tendency of following such strict rules, and because they believe that the world is an ideal place, they cannot feel the taste of life. Okay, they cannot feel any kind of joy, right? Even if, even if they experience some large scale pleasant event. Okay, and these people, they hate being late because they love discipline. Okay, but then, because Saturn is Fakri, almost every time, almost every day, they will be faced with the fact that someone who is working with them or someone who is next to them is delaying them by being late. Okay, and in some cases they can actually end up being late and very unpunctual. Okay, and of course they will not notice this behind themselves, but others will infuriate them. Okay, and it is not just the universe, it is not just life that brings them together with such people. Okay, more precisely, it is not for nothing that they choose the late ones themselves. Okay, so this is a karmic task that they have to cope with. And the lesson is to learn to be tolerant and get away from people who are boring, or who are, who bring some amount of irritability with them. Okay, now if Saturn, this was about Saturn being in the mode of ignorance. Okay, now but if Saturn is in the mode of goodness, in that case Saturn will reveal itself in a completely different way. Okay, what I mean by this is that all the best indicators and characteristics of Saturn are manifested. Okay, and instead of being boring or tough, these people will be very humble, very modest. Okay, they will have very upright moral values, and they will apply them in their own lives rather than teaching them to others. Okay, and these people, they develop a lot of selflessness as they move forward in life, and they also develop something which is very, very essential, and that is the quality of patience. That means they know that everything happens at its own time. Okay, and they also know that if something does not come true, then it is not the time, and if something has come true, if something has come, then it is time. Okay, and it should be so. So they have a very accepting view of the world as it is, without trying to change it, without without the need to control, or without the thirst for possession of material things, and that can also include people and time. Okay, so if Saturn is in the mode of goodness, these people, they are not attached to material things. They will not crave for attention, praise, or encouragement, and they will be fine with themselves, somewhere in remote places. And these people who have Saturn in the mode of goodness, they will always be drawn to spiritual and sacred places or temples where they can feel calm, and at the same time be saturated with the energy of these sacred places. Okay, and accordingly, these people will be very respectful towards all your spiritual teachers, to the priests, right? No matter what religion these people represent. And because they lead life correctly, so they will also respect the laws of life and the universe. Okay, so people with a well-developed Saturn, which is retrograde, they have very good organizational skills, and they are also very responsible, apart from being honest, as well as good performers at work. Okay, now they are not skewed towards workaholism, but they love to work, and these people, they know how to shift some of their tasks onto someone else, because not concentrating everything by yourself is actually a virtue. Okay, you have to understand this. There are some people who will who try to do everything by themselves, and then they end up doing nothing. Okay, so delegating tasks is an organic way of of handling your work and personal space. Okay, and because of this retrograde Saturn, they are usually irreplaceable at whatever they do. Why? Because no one can do the tasks better than them. Okay, and if Saturn is in the mode of goodness, then these people understand that we are the source of our own problems, and as a result, people who have retrograde Saturn, they are constantly developing, they're constantly working on themselves, looking for the reasons for external errors and failures within themselves. They're thinking what actions they did which led them to such a result. Okay, now Can you harmonize Saturn retrograde? What are the remedies that you can do if Saturn is retrograde? Okay, so the first remedy is, these remedies are very philosophical. There is no spiritual remedy that you can do, but if you can understand the reasons why you have gotten a retrograde Saturn, you can easily deal with it rather than crying over it. Okay, so first of all, stop demanding 100% from yourself as well as from other people. Okay, understand that no one owes you anything. Okay, understand that people are not there to work for you, so try to be soft and don't be intimidated by external or internal rules. All right, don't be very strict with yourself or others, because if you are, then it can bring a lot of pain to yourself and to those around you. Okay, then the other remedy is to develop the qualities of patience and humility. Okay, don't rush things. Life will put everything in its place anyways, and Saturn will ensure that everything comes to you at the right time and in the right amount. Okay, so the more you resist by being impatient, there will be more circumstances that will teach a person, that will teach you to wait. Okay, and the more modest and humble you are, you'll get more internal as well as external rewards. Okay, and then Saturn is also the karaka for spirituality. So if you have a retrograde Saturn, it means you have the pending karma of of developing yourself, of elevating your consciousness, of working on yourself. Okay, try to visit spiritual places more and more often, and once you let go of perfectionism, once you once you allow yourself to think independently and live more freely, assuming that others may also be right along with you, then you've actually managed to harmonize your retrograde Saturn, right? And be, as I said, humble is is accepting or admitting that you can sometimes be wrong and you cannot be always perfect in everything. Okay, and if you have harmonized, if you have internalized this attitude, then your retrograde Saturn will be easily harmonized. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. It's very interesting, to study the phenomenon of retrogradation. I'll see you soon in the next video. Kindly subscribe to the channel, share the content if you found it useful, and I'll see you soon in yet another video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.